everybody, Pastor Andy. Welcome to Making It Simple. Always great to be with you. And I thank you for joining me today for the next lesson in the beauty of simple. We started last week looking at a breakdown of this teaching series that we're going to look at. It'll be 5, 6, 7 parts. I don't know. But what we're looking at, we began looking at the word simple and why that matters, how that relates to our faith journey. And yesterday we started the second part of that, understanding relationship. Now, again, I know when we hear that word, as we talked about yesterday, we instantly think of coupling, be it a husband, a wife, a child, a best friend, whatever the case. We can look at all of those kind of things. But we ended the lesson yesterday with the question, who is Jesus? That is a broad question, because universally you can go anywhere in this world and you get an answer to that question. Some people would say, and it may be in an undeveloped place, well, I don't know. You have others that say, oh, well, he's this guy in the Bible. Others would say, well, it's a religious thing. And so you're going to get a variation of answers about that. Who is Jesus? This is an investment of time. This is a true commitment, if you will, a motivation to truly understand the answer to that question. Because I believe with all my heart, the answer to that question will change your life. Because within Jesus, we find the answers to everything. We find the answers to how to treat each other, how to respond, how to look to the days ahead. We find comfort, we find peace, we find correction, we find love, we find conviction, we find everything in the person of Jesus. Why is it important that we understand that? Through relationship. Understanding the nature of Christ, understanding his mission. Why was he here? John 3:17 says that God sent his Son into the world to save the world, not condemn the world. The continual badgering and beating up and just screaming fence of the messages that I see, trying to force someone to understand the things that we're supposed to understand, I don't see that helping anybody. And I'm not saying that I'm right. But I think when we begin to understand the person, the character, meaning the outward expressions, the compassion and the love expressed through Christ, we see the heart of the Father. Are there corrective things that God has done in time? Absolutely. That's parenting. That's not mean. That's parenting. No means no, and that's okay. It's supposed to. The knowledge that we need when it comes to understanding who is Jesus, we have to get past the formalities. It is not a mere acknowledgement, friends. It is through relationship that we get closer to Christ. It is not about being a biblical scholar or being able to recite Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic. Who is Jesus? That is a personal question. And it should be a personal journey, because as we develop that relationship, as we understand in all relationships in this life, what does it require? Time. But it also requires a willingness to learn. It requires a willingness to participate, a willingness to commune and to communicate, and all of those other things that we can say. And if we are not willing to do that, because we see this ever-growing pace in life, that everything is busier than it's ever been before, and there's more stuff to do, and there's more buttons to mash, and there's more buzzers ringing, and there's more things that are constantly grabbing our attention. I see it through my children, the distractions that they have at school now, the inability to focus on something more than, 20 seconds at the time. It has really impeded our ability to grow, not just as a people, but in our ability to understand the things of faith. I saw an article earlier today. In fact, I read the majority of it. And it spoke of a recent poll, and it said that people under 40 were particularly the ones that were spoken to in this situation. And it said that there's an increasing volume of people under 40 that do not or no longer consider themselves religious. Well, I read that, and I thought for a moment, and I thought, many people within the confines of my industry, if you will, would find that very offensive and be all up in arms and feathers ruffled and everything in a knot. I was not offended by that at all. In fact, I would even take it a little bit further and say that the reason that people would be able to say that is that I am not religious, or I don't want anything to do with that. The responsibility of that lies at the foot of the church. Because the church at large has presented religion rather than relationship. The do's and the don'ts and the immediate damnations and you're this and you're that, and Jesus didn't do that. God says in Scripture that He corrects those that He loves. That's a good parent. In fact, He says in the Proverbs, it tells us that if you don't correct your children, you hate them. So no is appropriate at times. Correction is appropriate at times. But to say that one is not religious, let me take that just a little bit further. Under 40, all right, let's specifically look at that. Jesus was 33, under 40. He spoke against religion, the organization, the systematic, formulatic, everything that's got to be this way, that way, whatever. And you can't cross this line, and you can't do this, can't do that. Well, Jesus didn't speak into that at all. In fact, He spoke against it. He was contrary to that, and it cost Him His life. That's the bottom line. Now, He came to give His life, and we can certainly get into that part of the discussion. But at the end of the day, who was His greatest opponent? Who was His greatest enemy on this earth? Even outside of the spiritual realm, we can get into the whole devil and all that discussion. But who was His greatest opposition when He was here? The religious leaders. Who is still the greatest opposition to this message today? The religious leaders. See, friends, that is why I am so convicted about what I do. This is why I teach the way that I teach. Understanding the answer to that question, who is Jesus, is pivotal for your life. Now, you may say today, well, I don't understand all that stuff. You don't have to. In fact, I would say some things are not meant for us to understand because we try to put God within our logic. Well, that's not how that works because God is so much bigger than anything we can even begin to understand. And the more that we try to put Him in the human box, the more difficult it gets to understand because it gets confusing and we begin to have human logic and like, well, this couldn't work and that couldn't work. Like I shared with you yesterday, the story of the lady that just could not grasp creation. Let's get back to the main point. Who is Jesus? Why is that important? Because Jesus said, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. Massive revelation. We'll talk more about that tomorrow as we pick back up on understanding relationship and why and how it'll change your life. God bless you, friends. Have a fantastic day.